What if I told you that almost everything you've been taught about the world is a lie? What if I could prove to you that almost everything you have been told virtually throughout your life about the way the world works was a lie? I bet you for most of you, it's not hard for you to believe that. And because you live in a world that is so obviously built of lies, whether it's the lies on the television, whether it's the lies of the politician, whether it's the lies that may have come from your childhood, whether it's the lies you commit yourself, you know that people around you are constantly living a lie. And you know that our culture promotes the use of lies to manipulate people. I mean, it's everywhere, right? From billboard signs to cell phone plans to, whatever you name it. Everything's for sale. Everything's a gimmick. Everything's a lie. And when it comes to the most important lies, I could prove to you that what you're being taught by the government, about history, about what's actually going on in the world, about the narratives that we're being sold by politicians about how the world works, these are all lies. I can prove it to you. But you know what? The most important lies that you've been told that have to be uncovered are not the lies about what's going on in the world. It's not the lies about history. It's not the lies about these important events that are shaping our culture, as important as those are. The most important lies that you've been told are the lies that you tell yourself. They may be lies that were told to you as a child, such as in my growing up, I was told how dumb I was, how stupid I was, how lazy I was. I was told by my parents that, in particular, my stepdad, who in his ignorance thought he was doing me a favor by telling me that I was the stupidest kid he'd ever met. You know what? At some point in my youth, when I was having problems, I actually began to believe those lies. And the negative things they spoke about me and over my life, at some point, I actually had a little switch, a little like switch inside of myself that said, you know what? Okay, I'm good for nothing. I'm not going to be anything. You think I'm so stupid? Well, maybe I'll just fulfill that for you. Now, was that a smart choice? No. Is it an understandable choice? I bet if you've ever had a similar experience, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about. Those are lies that were said over me. But you know what the most important lies are to discover? The lies that we tell ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that many of you are struggling with where you are in your life because the person who will not tell you the truth is looking at you in the mirror. And many of us are not going to tell ourselves what we already know, which of course is crazy. I mean, it really is crazy if you think about it. How are you going to hide what you already know about yourself from yourself? And yet that's exactly what we try to do. But I'll tell you, one of the reasons why we do that is because we believe, based on everything we've experienced around us, whether growing up or our culture, that it's not safe to be that kind of vulnerable. We're not even safe to be vulnerable with ourselves, let alone be vulnerable with other people. I mean, are you really vulnerable with your friends? I mean, are you able to expose your struggles, your insecurities with your closest friends? Do you have those moments? Most of you, I can suspect what the answer would be. In our culture today, people are so protective of their own image. We don't want anyone else to see who we really are because we don't feel like we're safe. So we work so well, we work so hard on our masks, and these personas that we build up become the very thing that control us. And so when we come to the place where we realize something's not right, that where we're at in our life is not where we want to be, that we come face to face with those struggles that are deep and real, and we know they are holding us back, we have to face the mask we've created. And when we get to that place, we do not feel that it's safe to take off the mask even for ourselves. Now, why is that? Why do we do that? And is there any solution? I know how that feels. My mask was so well made that when I had to face it, I denied it. The persona I had built up about who I thought I was to the world, I had so identified with it. I had so convinced myself that that's who I was, even though deep down I had to know that it wasn't true. I had so convinced myself that that's who I was, that when I faced who I really was, I didn't want to. I tried very hard to turn away. But unlike most of you, I wasn't able to turn away, because that experience I had, the first time that I had that experience, it was when I almost died from a drug overdose. And I left my body and I went into another dimension. And it's a whole nother story that one time I will share with you. You need to know it. But I will tell you this, in that other dimension that I went into, that my consciousness was alive and experiencing, meanwhile my body is back on an operating table in the hospital, there was nowhere to hide. There was nowhere to hide. And I had to face who I really was. And at first, I denied it. Then when I was instructed, there was somebody there helping me, actually, who was guiding me through the process of really facing who I really was. When I realized what they were showing me, I got it. I got the picture. And I accepted it. I accepted who I really was. But we live in a culture that is playing a trick on you. Because on the one hand, we're taught to just accept yourself for who you are. Just do you, man. Just do you. It's all about you. Just be free to be who you are. And that this is a course taken to be some kind of social virtue, that you don't care about anybody else. You're just going to be whoever you think you want to be, however you want to be. And that's looked at as a certain kind of independence, and that you're not self-conscious and that you're not insecure. You're very secure. But the truth is, we all know that's not true. We all know that many of the people we grew up with in high school who seemed so cool, or the comics or the class clowns, were actually some of the most insecure people. I mean, have you talked to any of the most famous comedians? I mean, you haven't actually talked to them, but if you listen to a lot of the most famous comedians, Chris Rock and others have talked about this, how incredibly insecure they are. The truth of the matter is, our culture is teaching you to accept your false self, not your true self. It's teaching you to accept the person who will never be your best as your best. It's teaching you to somehow accept that your persona that you put out in the world is who you were ultimately created to be. And that's just not true. That's just not true. So when I came to accept who I really was in that moment, it wasn't something I was proud of. It wasn't something I felt good about. I knew that who I really was selfish, was insecure, was incredibly capable of doing very hurtful things to people, even though I acted like I had it all together on the outside. I acted like I knew it all, yeah, like we do when we're 19. So when I accepted who I really was, there was a moment where I was transformed. I was transformed not to stay that person that I wouldn't want to accept. As I accepted that, I was able to have something else happen. There was a liberation inside of me, because a new connection could be made between me and the source of life. And that connection, I'm telling you, what can take you from where you're at now to where you want to go is your ability to face that mask, Take it off and know that it's safe, because when you are true with who you are, when you are honest with yourself about where you're at and who you're at, this universe and this entire creation that we see out here, the stars and the earth and everything, is upheld by a consciousness that's greater than me or you. There's an intelligence behind this whole thing that is drawing you into an experience where you will know that you are loved beyond anything you have ever imagined. And when you're in that presence of love, you find that you can be completely vulnerable, and it's in that vulnerability that you were able to be free, and you were able to let go of that false sense of yourself that you have worked so hard to maintain. And it's in that place where you are vulnerable to reality. You're not vulnerable in some kind of you're not being vulnerable to any other person. You're being vulnerable to yourself. You're being vulnerable to reality. You're just being vulnerable to the truth. And what that does is that allows you to have a connection to truth, and the truth will set you free. And when this happens, you can realize why I say the most important lies that need to be uncovered are the lies we tell ourselves. Because none of the lies about reality, none of the lies about what's really going on in the world and how governments lie and politicians and history, all that stuff, how companies are lying to us, Monsanto to, cover-ups and all this stuff, none of that matters if we are not able to face the lies we tell ourselves and the lives we live out of, because it's that place that has generated all of this injustice. Now, I ask that you would consider, regardless of where you're from, regardless of your background, regardless of your belief, I ask that you would consider something. Is it possible that going through a process that I've described could benefit you? I think it's pretty obvious the answer is yes. Is it possible that going through a process like that could hurt you? Because what I find happens is that for so many of us, we're more hung up by an idea about these things than we are the truth about it. There's many obstacles we face to simply the direct experience that God is drawing us into. Whether you believe, whether you don't believe, it doesn't matter to me. Is there any way that it would hurt you to be vulnerable with yourself, to be able to face who you really are? I don't think there is. And I know there's so much for you to gain. And the only part that you have to take one step of faith into believing is that the process is good, that it's good for you. And it is good for you. Thank you.